Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Terry Martin with the Illinois Channel, bringing you a very significant story as it is developing on the evening of November the 18th. It concerns an indictment, four indictments actually, brought by the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. I will read to you in a bit a portion of that of a press release that was put out by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District concerning the indictment of these four individuals. All the four individuals were power players, well known in Chicago and well known within the political structure for the state of Illinois. One of them has been a very close friend to House Speaker Michael Madigan for decades. And in fact, the real significance beyond the indictment of these individuals, one of who was also a high-ranking official with ComEd, the real significance of this story lays behind the individual that is referred to repeatedly as Public Official A. We know that to be the House Speaker, Michael Madigan, who has controlled all the politics within the state of Illinois, virtually all the politics for the last 35 years, and has ruled the U.S. House, the Illinois House of Representatives with an iron fist for many, many years. You may remember that Governor Rauner was frustrated in his efforts to get his legislation passed, his agenda passed, and he once famously said to some of the reporters, he said, "I am not in charge, I am trying to get to be in charge," and he was referring to the power of the House Speaker, who many have said over the years is more influential in the state of Illinois, more powerful than even the man that serves as governor, whoever that governor is. With that said, let me bring you a portion of the press release that was put out that summarizes the indictment, again, the indictment of four individuals concerning the scandal of ComEd, and alleges that these four individuals conspired with the House Speaker, Public Official A, to help each other out by passing legislation favorable to ComEd in return for favors sought by the House Speaker. Those are allegations. Remember, indictments are not guilt, and the government has the burden of proving guilt. With that, let me read you a portion of the press release put out by the U.S. Attorney's Office this evening, and then we'll get into some of the other responses from some of the leaders within the state of Illinois. The indictment charges four individuals with bribery, conspiracy, and willfully falsifying ComEd books and records. Those named are Mike McLean, 73 years old, of Quincy. McLean, who I will tell you has been a close friend to House Speaker Madigan, and you will hear in this, and you heard in it earlier when I read from the indictment, Public Official A is widely known to be referring to House Speaker Madigan. It says that Michael McLean, who was indicted, is a lobbyist and consultant for ComEd after serving in the Illinois House of Representatives in the 1970s and early 1980s. Also indicted was Ann Pramaggiore, 62, of Barrington, Illinois. Pramaggiore served as the Chief Executive Officer of ComEd from 2012 to 2018 and later served as a senior executive at Exelon Corporation, of which ComEd was a subsidiary. Also indicted was John Hooker, 71, of Chicago. Hooker served as ComEd's Executive Vice President of Legislation and External Affairs from 2009 to 2012, after which he worked as an external lobbyist for ComEd. And lastly, indicted was J. Doherty, 67, of Chicago. Doherty, who worked in J. Doherty and Associates, which performed consulting services for ComEd from approximately 2011 until 2019. Jay Doherty is also one of the top individuals at the City Club of Chicago, well known around the Chicago public policy arena. All of these individuals are very well known. The press release from the Northern District of Illinois goes on to read, arraignments in federal court in Chicago have not yet been scheduled. The indictment announced by John Lausch, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District, according to the charges, the defendant's efforts to influence and reward the high-level elected official identified in the indictment as Public Official A, again widely believed to be Speaker Madigan, began in or around 2011 and continued through the end of 2019. During that time, public official A controlled what measures were called for a vote in the House of Representatives and exerted substantial influence over fellow lawmakers concerning legislation affecting ComEd. The charges allege that the defendants, and forgive me for just trying to read this on the fly here, the charges allege the defendants conspired to corruptly influence and reward public official A by arranging for jobs and contracts for public official A's political allies and workers in instances where those people performed little or no work that ComEd purportedly hired them to perform. The defendants allegedly created and caused the creation of false contracts, invoices, and other books and records to disguise the true nature of some of the payments and to circumvent internal controls at ComEd. In addition to the jobs and contracts, the indictment alleges that the defendants undertook other efforts to influence and reward public official A, including causing ComEd to retain a particular outside law firm favored by public official A and to accept into ComEd's internship program a certain amount of students who resided in the Chicago ward associated by public official A, Speaker Madigan. Pramaggiore and McLean also allegedly took steps to have an individual appointed to ComEd's board of directors at the request of public official A and McLean, or so stated in the indictment. This now does a variety of things that the chips, the dominoes are going to fall here, or could possibly. It increases tremendously the pressure on House Speaker Madigan. It also increases tremendously the pressure on Governor Pritzker. Governor Pritzker, of course, a Democrat. Speaker Madigan is the head of the Democratic Party. And it also creates a lot of pressure on State Representative Chris Welch. Chris Welch is a Democrat representative who chairs a special committee that was to be looking into this, special investigative committee of the House, and so far has only held 2 hearings. Just last week, the Republican House members of the committee had a press conference, an online press conference, in which they expressed their frustration at the fact that the House committee was not proceeding in its duties. Let's hear from Representative Tom Demmer, a Republican who served on that committee, as he spoke about his frustration and that of his colleagues in the lack of an investigation that they allege Chairman Welch was purposely delaying to help Speaker Madigan. This runs about 2.5 minutes.
The Special Investigative Committee that was brought forward to investigate a charge against Speaker Madigan. As you recall, this past summer, the United States Attorney's Office and Commonwealth Edison entered a deferred prosecution agreement in which ComEd admitted to, over the course of a decade, taking a series of actions to reward and influence public official A. Public official A was identified as Speaker of the House Mike Madigan, and he was named in the deferred prosecution agreement 72 times. This obviously caught significant attention from both Republicans and Democrats all across the state of Illinois. And on August 31st, Leader Durkin, along with 2 other members of the House, followed House rules and entered a petition to form a special investigative committee to better understand what Speaker Madigan's involvement was with the actions that were laid out in federal court, and to get to the bottom of the truth of what happened. The Special Investigative Committee was established. There were 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats appointed, and the Special Investigative Committee scheduled its first meeting. Unfortunately, here we are today, 71 days after the petition was first filed, and the Special Investigative Committee has only met twice. We've only heard from 1 witness, 1 voluntary witness. The chairman of the committee, Representative Chris Welch, has blocked attempts to use the power of subpoena that the committee has to call in other witnesses, including Speaker Madigan and the many others who are named in the deferred prosecution agreement, who we know have relevant and important information that is necessary for our committee to conduct its investigation in a thorough, complete, and fair way. Frankly, it's shocking that the committee that's supposed to be conducting an investigation hasn't met in 42 days. There's no meeting scheduled for the foreseeable future. And the chairman has repeatedly pushed back against efforts by members of the committee and pushed back against the public comments of, again, both Republicans and Democrats calling on the committee to conduct a thorough investigation so members of the House of Representatives and the people of Illinois can have confidence that individuals who are elected to serve the people are being held accountable regardless of their position, and that there's not special treatment or special privileges given to a member simply because of their rank within the House of Representatives.
And so that was Tom Demmer speaking late last week, I should say, on the frustration of the Republicans on that committee that there was no further hearings being held. Again, that will put a lot of pressure on the individuals to go ahead and have that committee meet once again. Let me bring up, if I might, the statement issued about 2 hours ago, about 8 p.m. On the evening of November 18th. This is the night that we had the indictments come down. It is from House Leader, I should say, Republican House Leader Jim Durkin. And it reads, today's news makes it abundantly clear the Democratic Party of Illinois, chaired and controlled by Speaker Madigan, also known as Public Official A, is a corrupt organization that has run its course. For the past many months and years, Madigan's apologists, from the governor to the rank and file House Democrats, have turned a blind eye to his corrupt practices. Speaker Madigan and his long list of defenders needs to be removed from power, and that starts with Chairman Welch reconvening the Special Investigating Committee immediately. And that, again, from a Republican leader in the House, Jim Durkin. The leader designate of the Republicans in the Senate, Senator Dan McConchy, tonight also issued a brief statement in a text. It says, obviously, this is no surprise to the public. Democrats have enabled Madigan and his corruption for decades. They must finally and irrevocably reject the machine that controls this state, cast Madigan aside, and give control to the people once again. Now, Governor Pritzker has been asked on a number of occasions his thoughts on this. Earlier in the month, on November 5, the governor spoke to the questions of the scandal arising about the speaker and had this to say about the speaker, and whether at that point, not whether he should be forced to resign the speaker, but whether the speaker should be forced to resign as the leader of the Democratic Party. Let's listen to what the governor had to say.
Said several times that you want to hear answers from the speaker, but I wonder what specifically, because he's already said he never passed any legislation with improper motives, and anytime he referred someone to a job, he did so assuming they would do work and they wouldn't be on a ghost payroll of some kind. So what specifically do you need to hear from the speaker, and should he testify before these hearings?
Well, if you read the deferred prosecution agreement, and if you've read things that have come out of the U.S. Attorney's Office, what you would say to yourself, I think anybody, and we've all had the ability, it's all public information, anybody would say to themselves is, there's so much more here that we need to get answers to. And you don't exactly know what questions to ask because there isn't quite enough in those indictment documents to tell you what avenue the U.S. attorney is heading down. There are implications, but no explicit information that would give you the answers to the questions that I think most people would ask. But I don't know what those questions will be in total. What I can tell you is that we need to hear much more. And I've encouraged people to ask those questions, and I have said that it is vital that the speaker speak up and tell us what exactly is being implied in those documents. And until we hear that, it's very hard to make a judgment. What I know is that it's dissatisfying to hear simply the implications and without the rest of the information.
And again, that was the governor, as you saw, on September 9 of this year. It was on November 5, I should say, that the governor was asked whether the speaker should step down as the leader of the Democratic Party. And the governor at that time said yes. Senator Durbin also said that should be the end of the role of the speaker leading the Democratic Party of Illinois. So this is a developing story. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more, probably some press conferences coming up on this from both Democrats and Republicans. There have been a growing number of House Democratic members that have said the speaker should step down as speaker. And that is something I can tell you that is heretofore one would never hear. House Speaker Michael Madigan has served virtually unchecked, except for 1 2-year period. He has served virtually unchecked as the House Speaker of Illinois since about 1983. He is the longest serving House Speaker in the history of the United States. And the Speaker has often been said by those in the know that he is more powerful than the governor, that no piece of legislation can get through the House of Representatives without the acquiescence of Speaker Madigan. If Speaker Madigan were to be forced to leave his position as House Speaker, this would fundamentally change the balance of power, the structure of power within the state of Illinois, and that is why it is such a huge story. We appreciate you for joining us on this very profound evening. I'm trying to find my words just to put this in context briefly, but it certainly is going to be an impactful story, and there is no undermining the amount of pressure or underestimating the amount of pressure this now will put on Speaker Madigan and his allies for him to step down. Also, as I said earlier, on the governor to see if he will continue to stand by the speaker or if he will now demand that the speaker step down from his post. This is Terry Martin reporting. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.